Welcome to the first episode of the mini-documentary, Tourists in Our Homeland. This documentary is about our first ever family trip to Palestine. I'll be giving you a brief history of the Palestinian occupation and why it's such a big deal to us Palestinians. Then I'll go over the current situation. After that, you can get to know my family history and go on a tour with me to the Holy Land. Now, let me take you through the history of Palestine from the Palestinian perspective. Basically, this is how we see the facts. Palestine was under Ottoman rule for centuries. It was religiously diverse with mostly Muslims and Christians and a little bit of Jewish people. The people in Palestine identified themselves as Arabs or Palestinians. On the other side of the world, in around 1896, a community of Jewish people in Europe were joining a movement called Zionism, which stated that Judaism was not only a religion, but a nationality that deserved a country of its own. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed and the British and French empires split up and colonized the Middle East countries. Palestine then belonged to the British. Arabs and a little bit of Jewish people both peacefully coexisted in Palestine at the time. After the Holocaust, many Jews escaped to Palestine because they needed a safe and peaceful place to go to after they'd been tortured by the Europeans, and Palestinians welcomed them. Then tensions grew between both people because the Jews demanded for a Jewish state. In 1948, the United Nations approved a plan to split the land into two separate states, one for the Jews and one for the Arabs. That is, Palestine and Israel, or as we like to call them, Palestine and occupied Palestine, PALESTINE المحتلة. This was the year that the State of Israel happened. We call this day the Nakba, which refers to the forced displacement of Palestinians that began with Israel's establishment, and it's the Arabic word for catastrophe. At that point, instead of receiving appreciation, the Palestinians were in danger of ethnic cleansing. The Zionists tried to either kill them or kick them out by any means necessary to completely eliminate their existence. 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homeland, and today, Palestinian refugees add up to more than 5 million. And to top it all off, the very people who had harmed the Jews in the Holocaust, the Europeans, were the same ones who tried to help them occupy our homeland. While Israelis celebrate their establishment on this day, we mourn the loss of our homeland. So, Jordan took control of the West Bank and Egypt took the Gaza Strip, but Israel wanted more. They wanted Israel to be more than just the land of Palestine. Therefore, in 1967, they launched attacks on Egypt, Jordan, and Syria to try to expand their territories from Furat in Iraq to the Nile River in Egypt. This was called the Six-Day War or Arab-Israeli War. But not only did Israel win, they also pushed way past the boundaries that the UN had set and took much of the land that was supposed to be for Palestinians. It was the day Palestinians lost all what remained of their homeland. We call this day the Naksa, which means the setback. When the war ended, Israel seized the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank from Jordan, the Gaza Strip, and Sinai Peninsula from Egypt in just a matter of 6 days. So now Israel had occupied a whole lot of land. Over the decades, however, the other Arab countries began to make peace with Israel until Israel gave back their lands, but kept control over Palestine, including the West Bank and Gaza. Then the Palestinian Liberation Organization happened and fought against Israel to take back the land. Israelis started moving into the West Bank and Gaza, placing soldiers on watch and building settlements, and continue to do so today, even though the international community considers them illegal.
It is a firm position of the United Nations that settlements are illegal under international law and threaten to destroy the two-state solution.
The Palestinians were angry, and that's when the first Intifada started, meaning uprising. The war became too intense, so leaders from both sides signed the Oslo Accords in 1993, which was supposed to be the first major step to Israel withdrawing from Palestinian territories and allowing the Palestinians a little more freedom to govern their own areas. But Palestinians considered this agreement an injustice because Israelis continued to build illegal settlements in their areas. So another Intifada happened. This one was a lot more violent. So Israeli politics became a lot more intense, and that's when they started building walls and checkpoints to control the Palestinians. And Israel put Gaza under a suffocating blockade. It is known today as the biggest open-air prison in the world. Access to medical facilities, supplies, and clean water is almost impossible for people in Gaza, and unemployment rose up to 40%. Most recently, President Donald Trump had recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, so this made Palestinians angry because Jerusalem is not theirs for them to give or take. And to make matters worse for the Palestinians, Trump threatened to cut $65 million worth of aid out of $125 million to United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees, otherwise known as UNRWA. Today, here we are, still under occupation.